In this video, I'm going to show you how you can supercharge your KPI cards by adding a sparkline, a year-over-year growth percentage, and color changes, all with only one visual. And we will do all of this without affecting the performance of your report. Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Teljan and I'm a business systems analyst, and I've been involved with data and reporting for more than a decade now. Now, when I started this journey, I wasn't confident and I didn't know too many things. Fast forward a decade later and I've learned so many things along the way. I've learned tips and tricks that can make your storytelling better, and today I'm going to share with you one of these tips. Today I'll show you how most people would approach this KPI visual, and I'll explain why I wouldn't recommend it, and after that I will show you the way I build it and the way that affects the performance the least, and all within one visual. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, most people would start with a KPI card and they will add their measure for the total sales, for example. Play a bit with the formatting. Let's say we want to add the background and we want to change the background color to something different. And then we can change the call out value color. Let's say something a bit lighter. We can change the category label color as well. Let's say we'll go for this green. And now they want to add a sparkline. What would they do? Well, in general, what they tend to do is to add another line chart. Of course, you add your total sales measure again. And then from the date table, you select the month. And now here comes the formatting part. Of course, all you need to do is go to the y-axis, remove the values, remove the title, repeat for the y-axis. Play a bit with how it looks. Remove the title. You might go to size and style, you want to add a visual border, and this is pretty much it. This is how most people would do it. Now personally, I don't recommend this, and I'll tell you exactly why. If we search for optimization guide for Power BI, even Microsoft says on their page, limit visuals on report pages. It's highly recommended you limit the number of visuals on a particular report page to only what is necessary. So if you keep adding 2 visuals for each KPI card, before you know it, your page will be full of visuals. Because of course, you have slices, you have other line charts, you might have bar charts, you might have tables. So let me show you how I do it within only one visual. Now first, let's delete this KPI card and enlarge the line chart a bit. We will add back the title. Now you would ask yourself, how would you turn this into a KPI card? Now of course, if we look to the format options for the line chart, you have title and subtitles. You can use both of them. You can use, for example, the subtitle to show the year-over-year growth percentage, and you could use the title to show the actual value from the measure itself. So before we start the formatting, we need to build all the measures. Now of course we have the total sales, which is a simple sum of the line value. Next measure that we want to create is the measure for the year-over-year growth percentage, and here is how I like to do it. We will create this year-over-year percentage, and here you will see me working with a lot of variables. First variable that I like to create is one that returns the selected years. So we will call this variable selected year, which is equal to selected value of year. This is the selected value in the slicer above. Of course, if you click outside the measure while you work with variables, it will return an error. If you want to return the result of a variable, what you need to do is in the measure, type return, and then the name of the variable. In this case, selected year. Now, one thing that I'd like to do every single time to check all the steps that I take during a measure is just drag that measure on screen, and over here I see that it returns exactly what I have selected, 2023. If I select 2024, it will show me 2024. Now, let's go back to our year-over-year measure. The next variable that I want to create is the earliest date in the date table for last year. And we will call this variable first day. And this is equal to calculate the minimum date in the date table. Yes, let's go all the way up, where the year of the date equals to selected year, the variable that we calculated earlier. Close the parentheses, and instead of selected year, we will change the result to be first day. Click outside, and we see for the previous year, the first date is 1st of January 2024, which means instead of last year, we've selected this year. All we need to do is, after selected year in the measure, add a -1. All of a sudden, we have 1st of the 1st, 2023. Now, the next variable that I want to create is the last day of the selected year. And for that, we will copy the first variable. We will rename it to last day. And instead of selected year -1, we will do selected year. And instead of minimum, we will calculate the maximum. Now let's check this date as well, last day. Press OK, and the days last year, for example, in this data set is 31st of May 2024. Now the next variable would be to calculate the sales for last year. Now the sales for last year will look something like this. Variable last year sales equals to calculate the sum of the line value, and here come the conditions. First, the date in the date table, which is related to the date of the order in the table, is higher or equal to the first day, and also the date in the date table is smaller or equal than the last day, yes, minus 365, which will take it basically to last year. Close the parentheses. Let's see what it returns. Last year sales. And last year sales were 1.78 millions. Now we need to return a variable that calculates the sales for this year. Copy the previous one, paste it, say selected year, and we will have first day plus 365 days this time, and we will remove the minus 365 from the last day. And next, let's check this measure as well, selected year. And that would be 1.22 millions. Now the last thing we need to do is to calculate the year-over-year growth percentage. And here is how we have to do it. As the return, we need to return divide, and we will divide selected year's sales minus last year's sales, and they will be divided by last year's sales. Close the parentheses, press enter, and we'll see is minus 0.31, which means we select the measure, and then from format we choose percentage, and we have a minus 31.29% year-over-year growth. If we go to 2023, we have an increase of 17.80%. By doing it this way, we make sure that we only calculate the growth percentage on the same period where we have information for both previous year and selected year. Now that we have this, we might want to add an arrow that indicates that if we went up or down. So let's create a new measure that returns an upward arrow if the year-over-year growth percentage is higher than 0 and a downward arrow if the year-over-year growth percentage is lower than 0. So we have this new measure, we'll call it arrow, and it equals to switch, and if the condition is true, if the year-over-year growth percentage is higher than 0, then we have a unicar code for an upward arrow, which is 11165. And if the year-over-year percentage is lower than 0, then return unicar 11167. Let's close all the parentheses. And here we have it. We have a negative year-over-year growth percentage, downward arrow. We have a positive year-over-year growth percentage, we have an upward arrow. Now that we've sorted this, the next measure that we want to create is one for color. And it follows the same principle of the arrow one. So we have a new measure, and we'll call this one color. And again, we will use the switch function, and if the condition is met, the condition is if the year-over-year growth percentage is higher than 0, then return the color green. And if the year-over-year percentage is smaller than 0, then return the color red. Close the parentheses, and let's put this one to the test as well. Drag it on screen. Green for positive, red for negative. Now all we need to do is to create the measures for the title and the subtitle, because in titles or subtitles you cannot use measures that return anything other than text. So let's start with the title. New measure, we'll call this one title, and it equals 2, and in the title we want to say that the sales have gone up by whatever percentage. So what we need to do is type the text in between quotation marks, sales, and then we need to add the arrow, and we will use the arrow measure. And then if we want to add the space between the arrow and the actual year-over-year growth percentage, we need to use another function which is repeat, R-E-P-T, and we want to add one space, and we want to repeat it one time. If you want more spaces or repeat it a different number of times, all you need to do is change the 1 to, let's say, 2. And then here comes the part where we format the year-over-year growth percentage. We will add format, the value, which is the year-over-year growth percentage, and how we want to format it. In our case, it will be 0.00 percentage. Close the quotation marks, close the parentheses, press enter. Now let's drag it to the screen and see what it returns. Now you see it returns sales down by minus 31.29, which of course is not ideal because we already use the arrow. So what can we do? Well, we will use variables again. So let's go back to the title. We will copy all this text, and we will create a variable that is negative, and it equals to all this text, just that we will put a minus in front of the year-over-year growth percentage. And then we'll create a second variable which is positive. We will copy the previous text, and we want to return the following. Switch, if the condition is met, and the condition is if year-over-year growth percentage is lower than 0, then return negative. If the year-over-year growth percentage is higher or equal to 0, then return positive. And you can see the sales are down by 31.29%, or the sales are up by 17.80%. Now that we have the title, the next one that we want to use is the subtitle. This one is very easy indeed. So we will call it subtitle, and it will be equal to format, and the value we want to format is the total sales, and we want to show it as millions. So here is what we need to do: quotation marks, hashtag, comma, hashtag, 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 double commas, then a point, double zero, and I'd like to add an M. You could also, before it, you could add, for example, the pound symbol or the dollar, depending on what you need. Close the quotation marks, close the parentheses, and press enter. Now let's put this one to the test as well. 3.83 millions. Now let's delete all these measures from the screen and select the total sales visual. Let's begin the styling. First, we will change the title. Press FX, select field value, and we will select the title measure. Align it to the right. Let's make it, let's say 15, and we want to change the font as well. I usually go with Siguri UI semi-bold. And for the text color, again, we will use the field value, and we will select the color measure. And you see it already turned it to green, or you can turn it to red, exactly what we wanted. Next thing that we want to do is deal with the subtitle. Turn it on, and instead of the auto subtitle, we will go for the field, and we will select subtitle. Now, in order to make this look like a KPI card, this value will need to be a lot bigger. So I'll choose the Siguri UI bold, and let's try a 35 size. Looks good to me. Put it to the right, change the color for the minute, and we'll change it to this blue. And technically, this is pretty much it. Yes, of course, you can play with the background, and let's say we will add this color as a background, and then we'll change the color for the subtitle to something light. We'll change the color of the line, for example, and again, we will go with a lighter color. We'll go with white. If you want to play even more in the title area, you could turn on the divider, and let's say you want something orange, a bit higher in width, you can play with it. One other option is to create yourself, like I did in PowerPoint, one background. So all I need to do is go to Canvas, select Browse, I'll select my background, I'll make sure the transparency is set to 0 and it is set to fit. I'll grab my visual, try to see if I can make it squeeze. And we need to play a bit with the formatting now. First, I'll remove the background. Second, I will remove the divider. And then obviously it does not show the line yet. It needs to be a bit bigger. So we can play a bit with the size of it. After you play with the size of it, you can center it, and this is your KPI card. The KPI card has a line. Colors are dynamic, depending on the result of your measure. And most importantly, it's only one visual. So I would call this a success. But of course, you can do even more. For example, let's take the year-over-year growth percentage, and we will copy it. And we'll create a new measure. We'll call this last year sales, and they equal to. And of course, we don't need the selected year sales, and we will copy, actually no, we will return last year sales. Yeah. Now that we have the last year sales, let's change the title. So here's what we need to add. And open quotation marks, add a space, add a vertical line, last year, another space, close the quotations mark, and format last year sales. Again, we will use the millions formatting option, and we will have 1, comma, 1, 2, 3, double commas, 0.00 millions. Let's go close the quotation mark, close the parentheses. We will copy this new addition to the positive variable as well, and it's changed, and it shows the last year sales and the new year sales. Let's say, for example, you don't really like this green right here, yeah, and you could select the green that you like, something more alive, let's say this color. All you need to do is go to the color measure, and instead of green you can copy the hex code, and you see you've changed the color. And you can play even more with formatting and make it look exactly like you need to based on your color scheme. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I'm pretty certain you will enjoy this video right here when I went in depth on how you make your line chart even better. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This is Stelian signing off. Until next time, cheerio!